Hello and welcome to the e-edition of the Local Option Sales Tax Informational Meeting. My name is Nick Glue and I'm a council member at large for the City of Marion. In the next few minutes, what I'm going to try and do is summarize some of the information presented at the public meetings that have been held throughout the community and will continue to be held up until Election Day on Tuesday, May 3rd. I'm going to go through this presentation rather quickly because there's a lot of information here, and I know you'll probably be asking questions as we go through. There may be things on the slides that I'm not going to talk about, but it's all in an effort of getting through this information in a timely manner. If you have questions after this presentation, I would urge you to email any of your council members or contact City Hall. The city manager's office can answer any of your questions because, again, I'm going to go through this information rather quickly. First of all, we're having this vote on local option sales tax because the city of Cedar Rapids petitioned for this vote. They are the largest city in Linn County, and they are the only city that can call for a vote like this since they hold the majority of the population. We will be voting as a voting block, so Cedar Rapids, Marion, Hiawatha, and Robbins will be treated as one voting entity. We'll talk about that further in a couple of minutes. The Marion City Council, in preparation for this vote, has adopted specific ballot language. This will be the ballot language that you will see when you go to the polls. 30% of the money that would come from the extension of the local option sales tax would go towards property tax relief. 50% would go to improving our streets, and 20% would go to municipal facilities and other projects. After the council set that ballot language, we then continued and adopted a more detailed spending plan that supports each of those categories. That spending plan is available at the City of Marion's website, www.cityofmarion.org, and we'll also talk about parts of that as we move through this presentation. It's the intent of the City Council that every 5 years throughout this tax, additional 5-year spending plans would be adopted to, again, fill in the details, fill in specific road projects every 5 years that would be incorporated into this plan. It is also the intent of the council to appoint a citizen review committee for an added level of accountability. Currently, we are in the middle of a 5-year local option sales tax, and here's a sampling of some of the projects that have been completed with funds from those dollars that are now coming into the community. Many of you have probably have children or grandchildren and have seen the improvements to Thomas Park. You saw the street projects earlier. We're also doing some trail projects with those funds. And a couple slides back, you may have noticed the trunk sewer project. That was the primary project that's been funded out of local option sales tax. Unfortunately, it's all infrastructure. It's nothing that we will see or frankly wanted to see since it involves upgrading our sewage system. This is a major road project that's going to get underway in just a couple of weeks. It's the complete reconstruction of South 11th Street, which is much overdue. And here's just a sampling of some of the other projects that have and will be funded with the first 5 years of the local option sales tax. Should the community decide to extend this local option sales tax, the new tax would begin in 2014. From that period through the entire 20 years, this is how the money would be spent. 30% of that money would go to property tax relief, 50% for roads, and 20% to municipal facilities and other community projects. Again, every 5 years, the council would adopt specific plans that support these percentages. We would name specific roads that would be improved and reconstructed with these funds. Every 5 years, those percentages would have to line up. So how much will Marion get from local option sales tax? Right now, it's estimated about $5 million would come in every year. A key statistic for citizens of Marion to keep in mind is that because of the redistribution formula, 43% of the money that we would get in the city of Marion actually comes from outside of Marion. So keep in mind that as we talk about some projects coming up here in this presentation, to fund these projects out of property taxes, that means 100% of the money comes from us as taxpayers in Marion. By funding these projects with local option sales tax, 43% of that money is paid for by people outside of our community. So let's talk first about the 30% that would go to property tax relief. This graph here just illustrates what we have paid in city property taxes per $100,000 of valuation over the past 10 years. You can see how much we paid in the year 2000, which was just under $700. You can actually see that in 2011, that number is less. almost 11 years later. Again, keep in mind that I'm just talking here about the city portion of your property taxes. What do our taxes pay for? The levy that will be in place for the 2011-2012 fiscal year, beginning this summer, will be $13.50 for every $1,000 of value that you have in your home. This is what makes up that $13.50. You can see all the different smaller levies that go into that big puzzle that adds up to the total levy. I want you to pay specific attention to the debt service levy down at the bottom. This levy is used to pay back loans that the city has, and primarily those are bonds that the city has taken out to pay for street projects, large infrastructure projects, the types of projects that we're going to be talking about as we go through that. So keep that $2.33 in mind, because we're going to reference it several times. So here's an illustration that we put out here so that we could show people kind of in real dollars what this property tax relief means. And what we did is we illustrated here the tax savings for someone that owns a home valued at $144,474. That's the average value of a home in the city of Marion. By using 30% of the local option sales tax revenue for property tax relief, you can see that reduces a homeowner's property tax bill by about $77. What that does is it decreases the current city levy at the top from $13.50. It reduces it by $1.13. So at the end of the day, each year, $1.5 million is coming from lost local option sales tax for property tax relief, and that equals about an 8.64% property tax reduction to the average homeowner. This is a chart that illustrates that same impact, but to a business owner. And it's a little bit difficult to understand unless you are a business owner. It all has to do with what the state calls the rollback formula, and the fact that us as homeowners are taxed at a different rate than what commercial and industrial property owners are. But nevertheless, for commercial and industrial property owners, the typical tax relief would be about $113 a year, and we're still using that $113 is for a business that's assessed at about $145,000. Let's talk now about roads. One of the problems that we as city councils have is keeping up with just annual road repair. This is an interesting illustration that talks about what inflation has done over the past 10 years. It also then talks about what the cost of concrete has done over the last 10 years and asphalt prices. You can see they've gone up dramatically. You can see during that same time, we've increased our spending on roads by just 78%. Local option sales tax is a way to pay for projects that we already essentially have on the books. None of these projects that we're talking about, whether it's roads or in some of the facilities coming up that we're going to discuss, are projects that we just created because we had the potential to have this revenue source. These are projects that have been on the books, and you can see here, this is talking about our capital improvement program, which is a detailed listing of all of the roads and infrastructure projects that the city of Marion needs to accomplish. Unfunded projects so far in that program total nearly $30 million today. So there's lots of need, lots of catching up that we have to do. This graph here illustrates the various road improvement projects that we've laid into our 5-year plan. And what we wanted to do here is illustrate that we've identified projects throughout the entire community, not just heavily concentrated in one part of the community, that we're going to fund by using local option sales tax. The final portion that the local option sales tax dollars would go towards are municipal facilities and community projects. I want to talk a little bit about how the city funds these types of projects today. Typically, there's only two ways of paying for it. We can pay cash or we can borrow for them. When we borrow for projects, that's paid back through, remember the debt service levy that we talked about earlier? We borrow for those projects, and then we make loan payments on them. And we make those loan payments by adjusting the debt service levy appropriately. Every dollar that we use to pay for city buildings by using local option sales tax is a dollar that does not get charged to your property taxes. by increasing your debt service levy. So keep that in mind. All these projects that we talk about moving forward, funded by LOST, help keep your property taxes down. 3 major building projects are proposed to be funded by local option sales tax: our library expansion, the replacement of our police station, and an exciting project going on in the community right now that's being referred to as the Function and Fitness Center. All these projects are really too large to be paid for by just using cash. It's hard for the city to save up that much money to build a large building. There aren't very many people that do that when they buy their home. Usually there's some type of loan that's taken out and paid back over a period of time. So keep in mind the debt service levy coming up this next fiscal year is set to be $2.33. By paying for the library, which is estimated to be up to an $8 million project, by paying for that with local option sales tax dollars, we're able to not increase the debt service levy by 57 cents. You can see that funding the police station with local option sales tax dollars impacts the debt service levy by 94 cents. It saves us 94 cents. What that means as far as real dollars to the average homeowner, again, I'm using this comparison of an average homeowner with a home assessed at about $145,000. That's about $116 to $129 a year that we're saving by not having to increase our property taxes and pay for these building projects with local option sales tax dollars. Over the life of the loan, which in this case, these would most likely be 15-year loans, over that 15 years, this same average household would save just over $1,800 in property taxes. One final building project that I wanted to talk about is called Functions and Fitness. This is out of our community visioning process called Imaginate. And this is a multi-agency partnership that is a facility that features education, water therapy, and recreation space. We're talking court space, swimming pools. And all of this is because all of these partners listed on this slide each have unique needs. And they're working together to try and build this facility together versus each entity going out and building a separate facility. So this is a very unique partnership. It's an exciting partnership that at the end of the day saves taxpayers as a whole lots of money by working together. As you look through the remainder of the 5-year spending plan, you'll see several other items. And I guess instead of talking about them in specifics, I'm going to ask that if you would have any other questions, to please send an email or call City Hall. That number is 743-6301. You can email myself at nglew@cityofmarion.org, or you can go to the city's website and find all the contact information for council members and other staff. We just really hope that through this presentation you've had an opportunity to learn about the impacts that this local option sales tax does have. Keep in mind that none of the projects that are proposed to be funded with these dollars are projects that have been created because of this revenue source. These are projects that the city has been planning to pay for in other ways, primarily through property tax increases. And we feel very strongly that this is one way that we can accomplish all of these projects in a much more cost-effective way. Thank you for taking a few minutes to listen to this presentation. And again, please just remember to vote on Tuesday, May 3rd.